The season of health is on Cruise Through HTX. And what happens if cancer touches your life not once, but twice? Today, I'm joined by Ashma Moosa. She is not just a two-time cancer survivor, but also a registered nurse, a board member at the Rose Breast Center of Excellence, and a breast cancer advocate. Her journey is long and marked by personal battles and victories over two types of cancer, including breast cancer. She chose a path less traveled in her treatments and leaned heavily on her faith and family along the way. Her insight and strength could be a beacon for somebody you know personally. So consider subscribing and sharing the show from my website, cruisethroughhtx.com. And last of all, please talk to your primary care physician before trying anything you hear during any of the episodes on this season of Cruise Through HTX. I met you through Dorothy, who is a friend of mine and a client, and you are a supporter of the Rose. So at the time of this recording, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but this is January. And as we all know, breast cancer doesn't know just October.
No.
So let's walk through your experience and all that stuff.
So Dorothy is a very close friend also. And we got to know her when we first started our practice. We started sending our patients to the Rose because we love the mission. Every 3 women, with insurance pays for one uninsured. And we sometimes had cash patients too, so they were able to help us. It was time for my mammogram. I started my mammograms a little earlier than 40, so I would always go there and get my mammogram done. And I had mine done like on a Thursday, I think, and Dr. Malello called us at home on Saturday. And I thought that was kind of a strange call because when he answered the call, she was asking him, is this last name, is this your wife or your sister or who? He says, well, that's my wife. And I could see that he was talking to her and gotten kind of serious. And I just knew from the conversation that something was not right. And so before he hung up, he said, we'll be there on Monday morning. So I knew that look that he gave me because I also am a 2-time cancer survivor. I also had thyroid cancer first. And the same look I saw in my husband's eye. So that's where my journey began at the Rose. I got my biopsy there. I was referred out. I went to see my oncologist. My oncologist referred me to MD Anderson. I had my treatments and all that done there. I had to make a decision whether I want to go the surgical way or radiation after the lumpectomy. And I decided to choose to do a bilateral mastectomy, being my background, I know I had seen women in my nursing, in my office, that whenever they had a lump on their right breast, sooner or later they would have the other breast affected too. So that thought process was going through my head, and I thought, this is my second primary cancer, so I didn't want to take that chance. So I asked questions. I did a lot of my research. I spoke to Dr. Dixie Malello, and she told me, she says, as a young woman, you have a choice. So whatever feels comfortable to you, you should move forward with that. So I chose to do a bilateral mastectomy with a transplant. So that way, it was a one-time deal. I wouldn't have to worry about other surgeries because they would use my own tissue to rebuild me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was a very large, surgical procedure.
Yeah.
So you have the plastic surgeon and the surgical oncologist working together. And it's like maybe 15, 16 hours you're under. Wow. Yeah. So I chose to do that. But unfortunately, when my biopsies and all that came back, they told me that they said that, we would have actually removed your right breast regardless because your cancer was a little bit outside the margin. And so
When they say outside the margin, what does that mean?
So when they take the tumor out, they look at it where the cancer is. So they remove that, they send that to the lab. And the lab is it's so precise. I mean, we should be very lucky to have such biopsy reports that tell you so much, what cancer type it is, how far it was outside the margin, because there is a certain margin if it's beyond that. And mine was outside the margin, according to them. And it was a HER2 positive cancer. So each cancer is different.
There's 17. I've learned that this year. There's 17 different kinds.
Yeah. So you don't know which one. And so mine was, they confirmed it was a HER2 positive.
And I'm sorry, is that one of the worst ones?
It is if it comes back. So they removed the tumor, they removed everything, they removed the tissue, and they were actually happy that I did the bilateral mastectomy because they would have removed my right breast. And then I wouldn't have had the choice to do that procedure because that procedure is a one-time deal.
Okay.
So there was a lot of factors involved with that.
Yeah.
And so I was told that because of it being outside the margin, you don't know if one of the cells has floated away during surgery, and maybe it might come back, and it would be much more aggressive.
One of the cells floating
away to a different area. So how do we nip that in the bud? Chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So I had a choice. In a way, a choice, maybe not a choice. If I did the chemotherapy, it would bring my odds down to have a reoccurrence.
Okay.
If I did not choose to do chemotherapy, I could probably get away with it, but then there is always that question mark.
Okay, so I want to ask you, because you are a nurse, you're in your medical family, you're involved with the Rose, and I've known Dorothy and the crew for many years. I've worked with them hands-on for the past 2, producing their podcast, and I still really don't know all the terminology. I know chemotherapy. Before I ever met them with the Rose, I knew chemotherapy is for cancer patients. Okay, but there's chemotherapy, there's immunotherapy, there's radiation. What are each one of those things? So
let me explain to you the kind of chemotherapy that I had was recommended by a physician at MD Anderson who did research in HER2 positive cancers. And with the research that they've done, they have been able to find out which protein and which medication is going to target that particular cancer.
We are blessed.
Yes, we are. So this particular medication that they gave me with the traditional chemotherapy was called Herceptin.
Okay.
So that was included in my infusions. So that goes after that particular cell type and cell protein. So there's so many different ways of looking at treatments according to what kind of cancer, which location your cancer is in, which area it's in, and our research has come so far.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I'm learning every day from different patients that I coach. Sometimes they'll tell me their story, and sometimes I notice that the most important thing is sometimes you can have the smallest cancer, but the outlook that the patient has is very dim and dark. Those patients, usually the smallest cancer, sometimes they don't do well emotionally and physically and mentally. But then when there's patients that have had a more complicated cancer and they learn more about it and they ask questions and then they kind of turn it around and say, how am I going to fight this? Those patients really do well, and they're longer survival rate. So really, sometimes I think, is it the cancer that when you are diagnosed with gets you at the end, or is it the outlook? Is it the physical? It's all together.
Yeah, because the mind follows the body, right?
Exactly.
And so if you have convinced yourself that, okay, you have cancer and you are going to die, and why am I even bothering?
Right. So emotional plays a big role, mental, physical.
Yeah.
I mean, as tired as I was after chemotherapy, I would put an alarm on to get up at least every 2 hours to get on that treadmill just so I could walk a little bit. Because I noticed my muscles were sort of fading away. My color was changing. I lost my hair. But that was not going to stop me because I was going to keep myself as healthy as I could while I was on chemo. And my doctor, my oncologist would tell me, are you able to sleep at night? And I told him, that's the one thing I don't have an issue with because I am spiritually very connected to the way I feel this is a test and I'm going to get through it. So I never had issues with sleep. I prayed. I, did my spiritual thing at night before I went to bed, and that put me to ease.
Talk about how your spiritual life helped you.
So one of the greatest things that our faith teaches us is that whatever you're going through, there's a reason for it, and it's a test. Okay? So once you accept that...
It's a test?
It's a test.
Okay.
Okay? And once you accept that and you give that to your creator to handle, it's a lot to swallow sometimes when you're going through that because you have to come to terms with it first.
That your life is not really yours.
Yes. And if I was not going to get this cancer, I could go out there, get hit by a car, and I'm gone. But this is somewhere along the line, there's a reason for this. And I say that because my mother, she died very young at 48. She was in a car accident and she was gone. So, your fate is, you don't know that unknown what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But now you have an opportunity. You got this diagnosis. How are you going to handle that? Plus, how are you going to handle that as a family? This was an opportunity for me as a mother to make my children not scarred, not, scared, not being able to move forward. This was an opportunity for them to learn that mom is going to go through this, but we're going to get through this together by being together, praying together, and taking care of each other. And I think all these things play such a huge role. You don't realize how your children are so resilient.
They are.
So the first thing we did, we usually told them just enough that they understood at that age. You don't want to tell them too much. But...
And I'm sorry to interrupt. How young were they?
So my daughter, Fatima, was about 12 or 13.
Okay, so almost old enough to really fully understand.
Yes, this was since it was my second cancer. When I had the first cancer, they were much younger, but now they understood the word cancer.
Yeah.
And then my son was about 5 years old or so.
Still pretty young.
Yeah.
Too young to really.
Yeah.
Mom is sick and that's about it.
Exactly. But then again, the spirituality aspect, we live to die. Okay, so we are very open with our kids, what our faith teaches us, that we're here, we have to do good work, we have to do the Lord's work, but one day we have to depart.
Yeah. And
how are you going to prepare? So we approached it that way to our children, and we never lie about, like there's a lot of families that don't talk about death.
I don't like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it makes it an easier journey for your children to accept, to be resilient, to be able to face the unknown sometimes.
Right.
So these were all opportunities that we had
to
teach our children that this is what life is, and we're going to get through it.
I love that so much. And, building on the talking about death, you're facing death. And at one point, you, Dr. Moosa, me, my wife, my mom is going to depart this earth and I will no longer have mommy.
Exactly.
And what kind of kids do we want to be? Like, we will not, and I tell one of my kids more so than the other, your daddy will not be here to take care of you one day.
Exactly.
You're going to be my age. You're going to be my age, 49. And there is a solid chance that I will not be on this earth. I will not be here.
Exactly.
So suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah. And the reason why I learned that is because when I lost my mother, she was 48 years old. My father, both of them were busy people. They were, they wanted us to thrive. We traveled the world. We came here. And I guess we never had the opportunity to talk about death. Mm-hmm. So I was never really exposed to, what happens when one dies, or nobody talked to me about it. So it was very difficult to understand the death process and the acceptance of it in my journey. So I didn't want that for my kids to be faced. And I think my husband can vouch for that. It took me almost until I had my second child to come to terms with my mother's death. Oh. So you go through these, so I think preparing yourself in this journey is so important. Yeah. And parents need to, just like any other priority, this is a priority as well. Prayers are a priority, all these things. But death is also a priority to speak about and feel comfortable about it.
Yep. Because it's going to happen to all of us.
Yes.
And nobody knows the expiration date.
Exactly. We could go out there right now and we're done.
We're not milk cartons. There's not.
And there's no age. It could be the young. It could be the old. It could be, whatever it is.
I was just thinking about this the other day, Ashma, is that, here I am, 49. I know I don't look a day over 21, but here I am, 49.
You look great.
Thank you. I'm not fishing for compliments. But here I am at 49, and if I die at 51, I am so much closer to my death day than my birthday, my actual birthday. Mm-hmm. Like right there within arm's reach.
Right.
It's just fascinating. I know it seems dark to people who don't like to talk about death, but it's fascinating to think about this kind of stuff.
Yes. And, sometimes we've been talking about, to our children even more now as we're getting older. Mm-hmm. We're getting to a point in our life that we've done our work. We've raised them. We've educated them. And in fact, just the other day when my son was home, I sat down with them and told them, this is where all the documents are. This is where the bank keys are. This is the jewelry I have, so don't fight about it.
How uncomfortable was that conversation? He comes home thinking he's going to hang out with mom and dad?
Actually, it was a very comfortable,
okay.
And my son looked at me and he goes, all this jewelry, that my sister's going to get all this. So I said, you know what? Pick the furniture you want and put your name underneath it so you can have that.
Scroll out on the bottom.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to make light of it.
Yeah.
But you do need to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's pivot the conversation to something that you're doing now. So you are a nurse, breast cancer, 2-time cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor is one of them. You advocate for the Rose, but now you're coaching cancer patients or survivors or both?
Actually, anybody and everybody that comes to me with any challenges, but my soft spot is specifically women and women going through cancer because I have touched so many lives in this last 15 years.
You have.
Yes. And I wish I had kept a journal of all the stories, but they're all in my heart. Mm-hmm. I have made some beautiful friends, survivors. I have lost a lot of friends that I met along this journey, and they fought hard, and some of them were young, some of them are older. So they all remain in my heart, and I feel like I touched them in some way, and I hope I benefited them to make it a little bit easier for them to give them a little bit of hope. Hope is very important. You should never give up on that.
And so with the coaching, what's interesting, because I've heard you talk about this in conversations, there's a meditation component to that. So
Absolutely.
You're not just coaching them like, hey, everything is going to be all right. There's an actual practice, process that you're going through with these people.
Right. So usually, so how I was introduced to meditation, first of all, I just wanted to give you a brief a summary of how I got passionate about it and how it broke some barriers for me. I went away to learn this art at a place where they teach you meditation, and it's a silent meditation. To learn this art, there is a process. This is a class for 10 days that you go there, you submit yourself, they provide you with a space that's yours. Nobody's in that space, so you don't talk. But it's scientifically how they have used science and the human mind to detox your brain and teach you how to be in the here and the now.
So you have to be alone for 10 days and you cannot talk.
No.
That's a tall order for anybody, even the most disciplined person.
Well, when you're in, I was in that space where I needed some outlet.
Okay.
To come to terms. I was a busy mom. I was a wife. I was working with my husband. I was managing the office. I was managing everything. But I was going through a lot inside me. I needed some sort of a relief. And I guess that's what you call depression. I was going in a dark space.
Gotcha.
But I wasn't willing to accept that. And my dear cousin that I remember him always, he's always been such a light in my life. He no longer is with us, but he's the one who actually paved the way for me to learn about meditation. And initially I just looked at him like, what is this?
Who's got time to be kneeling down and breathing and being quiet? No way. You're nuts.
Yeah. So I was sitting in my living room one day and I thought about our conversation and the literature he left me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going in such a dark space. Maybe I need to look at something that he was speaking about. So I did. I found the place. I went there. I submitted myself for 10 days. Yep. I told my husband, and my husband did not ask me where I'm going, but he knew this was what I wanted to do, and maybe this will bring her some peace. So I went there, and incredible place. Incredible space that you are able to find in your heart, where you can go in and really connect with your creator and not have any distractions. We can't do that on a daily life.
It's hard.
So anyway, I was taught how to do this meditation process. In 10 days, I succeeded. I passed the class.
You didn't say a word.
I did not say, and you know what? It was the best thing in the world not to be able to talk to somebody and not them unloading on you and you speaking to them and cluttering your brain. My brain was completely cleared. And I can tell you a lot about what happens to you in those 10 days. That could be a whole other show. But what I learned in those 10 days, I still carry that with me. And that is to spend at least 30 minutes and give yourself self-care, give yourself some silence. We don't need to be stimulated all day.
No.
That is not food for our heart and our brain and our body.
I don't think the human being was meant to have all of that,
No, but we've never been taught that.
Right.
In the traditional way of growing up.
This way of growing up, I feel, is relatively new when you think about how long humans have even been around.
Right.
It's phone, just the iPhone itself, early 2000s.
Yes. And actually, I took my kids there when they were younger. They had a kids camp. And initially, they looked at me like, Mom, really? But you know what? They found that gem in that. And I hope that they are using that in their life now. Because kids are so busy and it's a complicated life.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. And when you think about it, 30 minutes in a 24-hour day.
It's actually not much, but it's enough to give you that refuel that you need. It kind of, when I close my eyes, I ask myself, what did I do today that made me happy and that maybe I gave something to somebody that is going to be helpful for that person. And just thinking about that and going into that feeling of gratitude brings me calmness. And listening to your breath and being able to feel your heart. Sometimes people don't even realize that your heart beats constantly since you were born.
Yeah.
The appreciation. So these are the things that kind of puts you in that blessed space.
Yeah.
Just for that 30 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it is.
The fact that this all works
Yes.
all the time
Constantly.
is amazing. Yeah. And, we go to sleep. We go to sleep and, most of us that are listening right now are going to wake up in the morning, and it's amazing that the brain just, okay.
Yeah, that's right. And actually you sleep better too when you calm yourself out instead of being stimulated before you go to bed. In Europe, actually, they've done a lot of studies where kids have been introduced to meditation in their classrooms. And they do so well in their studies, in their behavior. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah.
It is an art that one needs to learn and really believe in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because I'm sure if you're just going to go and sit down or kneel down and
it's like people feel like, oh, okay, you're going to sit there and go, you don't have to do any of that. You just need to be with yourself and just. It's sometimes I look at my hands and I meditate, or sometimes I walk and I look around and I'm thinking, I've drove by this place so many times. I've never noticed that tree or that plant. So this is all part of appreciation.
Because everything is interconnected.
Yes. And so we really need to do that.
Okay, wrapping up the conversation, what is your favorite lesson that one of your coaching clients has taught you?
I learn something new from each coaching. Actually, you know what? When I'm coaching people, I'm actually learning from them. And one of the things that one of the coaches told me when I was talking to them, she said, you know what? You're the first person that actually listens to me. And that is a gift also.
Yeah.
To be able to be engaged with another human being and listening to them. She says, thank you for listening to me without being distracted. So she taught me that what I was already doing it, but I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
So I always stress upon, if you're talking to your spouse, you're talking to your children, and we're all guilty of being distracted.
Picking up the phone at dinner time. Yeah.
Or when your child is talking to you and you're like everywhere else, or you go to a party and you notice that one person kind of draws to you and you're like, I really don't have time for this. But if you can just give them just a few minutes and just listen to them, they're going to tell you so many things.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're a student every day. You're learning from each other every single day. But when she told me that, I became more aware of that I have the ability to listen. Thank God.
Somebody wants to hire Coach Moosa for some personal development, meditation. How do they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me with my phone number by texting me. Do not leave a message. And it clearly says that if you're calling for a coaching session, do not leave a message. Just text me at 281-235-2529.
Okay, you're going to put the phone number out there. All right.
Yep. That's number is just a number. They're not going to come get you.
All right. Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, this has been so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that we were able to reach somebody.